We have been eagerly waiting with bated breath to see what Newcastle's next foray into the summer transfer market is going to be. The Magpies, the Toon Army, need to get back into Champions League football this year, and it's felt like for all the rumours and all the noise that's been coming out of Newcastle, they've been waiting for a lot of big money departures to happen so that they can then go and get those reinforcements, go and get those upgrades to get them back up to the top end of the table where this project and the club and the fans all believe they really should be. From Miguel Almiron, Callum Wilson, Bruno Guimaraes, Anthony Gordon, there's been a few nervous moments in terms of the rumours and the moves that might be and could be and all the rest of it, but none of them have actually happened. There's been no big money departure, and Newcastle are on the cusp, or on the verge of spending 65 million pounds on England international, England number one centre-back it feels like at the moment, Marc Guehi from Crystal Palace, and a transfer that I think is a huge upgrade on what Newcastle have got defensively, but it also has me pulling my hair out at the same time that this is history repeating itself for Eddie Howe's Newcastle all over again. This is a transfer that really does have me split, because I do think that Guehi is going to bring a real lift of level and a real long-term solution to the commanding centre-back position that Newcastle are going to want to have well-equipped and well-stocked for the next cycle, this kind of dynasty that they're building at the moment. But like I say, it does feel like history repeating itself. We'll talk about that, the impact of Marc Guehi, where does he fit into the squad, and everything else in between at any point in the video. If you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this as we cover all the transfers that are making the headlines across European and world football as we prepare for what could be the biggest season of European football ever. And get into the comment section on this one and let me know, what do you think of Guehi to Newcastle? Is it a big level up? Is it a wasted transfer or so? Should they be spending and bringing in somebody else in a different position? I just want your thoughts and feelings on this whole move and how it sits in the landscape of the Newcastle team roster build, whatever it is they're up to at the moment. And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it. And I think it is best just to dive straight into this one, because there's plenty to chew over for this transfer, from the player, from the squad, from the forward planning. What is the strategy at Newcastle? There's a lot that's been revealed or not been revealed by this transfer, and it's really just got me scratching my head that maybe this is going to be Newcastle and Eddie Howe repeating the same mistakes that they've made in previous windows. But Marc Guehi, make no mistake about it, is one of the best defenders I think available, and I didn't even know he was available in the Premier League, for any team that does have the ambitions of permanently being a fixture in the top 5, top 4, top 6, whatever you want to think of it as. This is a guy that really did shoot to prominence last year, although he's been around the block a little bit longer than that. He wasn't a new name to Premier League fans certainly last year. But last year, under Roy Hodgson's Crystal Palace and then formally into Ollie Glasner's Crystal Palace, he put in a number of stellar performances for the Eagles to help them have a somewhat successful year last year. The second half of the season, as you can see, didn't maybe hit some of the heights they hit earlier on, when Crystal Palace were very much backs to the wall and the defenders really had to do a lot more defending. Under Ollie Glasner ball, they've been a lot more possession-based, a lot more front foot, a lot more attacking, and we've actually seen, although the statistics don't clearly show it, a real uplift in his output, a real development in his repertoire, so much so where over the Euros he was a mainstay for England in at centre-back, having previously never really been a part of the squad or whatever. But one of the most interesting things for me for him under Ollie Glasner was starting to appear in centre midfield, because although he's well known, throughout the Premier League as being a capable defender 1v1, being very good on the ball where he can get an assist, he can build out from the back as it were, but seeing him play in midfield just shows that he's got a really high football IQ, he's got a really good football intelligence for wherever he finds himself on the pitch, being able to make the correct decision for the team, as well as being formidable in that role, being good in their 1v1s, holding the position well, and being tactically aware of, the effects they have on, fullbacks that might be overloading, where attacking midfielders can end up, etc. And that really did elevate my opinion of him, and I think we've seen a lot of great work from him in the Euros as well. But when we go and we insert him into the Newcastle squad, for me, you do not sign Marc Guehi, especially at 60 million quid, and he is not going to be in the best 11. So this kind of, there's a few things that this kind of raises all at once, right? So I think we'll deal with Botman real quickly, because I think the writing must be on the wall that this guy is broken. He's always going to be broken. He's always going to be a problem. After this season that we're in, he'll be into the final 2 years of his contract, and most clubs like to sell a guy before they get into their final 12 months. So I think if Botman cannot really make a resurgence this season, number one, Newcastle with Guehi, Kelly, who's also a summer signing, and Byrne, who has maybe lost his job at left back to Hall. They're very well equipped, very well covered, Newcastle, with left-footed centre backs. But with this being such a massive, massive outlay, and you only need to look at the depth here, Jamal Lewis has been featuring in pre-season alongside Byrne. Target is still on the books. And then on the right-hand side here, you've still got Trippier, Livramento and Kraft. Newcastle have got so many defenders. They're well covered, like 3 to a position almost now, all across a back 4. Yeah, if we just put Botman over here, it basically would be 3 to a position all across the back 4. And it really has me scratching my head at why Newcastle are doing this move now. Now, the obvious answer might be the Botman thing, like we just mentioned, but they've also just brought in Kelly, who has been playing, has a pretty good reputation. They could play Byrne in this situation because he's, plays for the shirt, bleeds black and white, and, he's a good Premier League player in a centre-back setting. If he's properly covered, the team's well balanced and got good players around him, he could definitely do a job there for me in the absence of Botman, and if he didn't quite fancy Kelly every week. So this, for me, honestly, is just another Livramento and Hall situation all over again, but it's like you've got guys that are going to be playing in this position probably every week. Now, Newcastle don't have European football either. So for me, when I look at this, Guy has to be in the best 11. And when you look at his age, his profile and everything else, it does feel that Guy, Hall and Livramento is going to be a long-term Newcastle defence, English core, playing together for as long as possible. And, Shar should be the main man this season, I would imagine. Maybe Kelly can grow into the role. Maybe somebody like Botman could come back. Maybe in the future they go and buy a marquee centre-back like Lenny Yoro, like I told them to back in January, or something like that, to kind of lift the level of the whole defence as time goes on. Maybe they look for another English centre-back to complete this kind of set that they're looking to build. And if that is the case, and it feels like this is a transfer that Newcastle, similar to Livramento and Hall perhaps, where it really does feel that they've made those transfers out of step for me, considering the depth and the lack of depth that are elsewhere in the squad. But if you're after a particular guy, players are non-fungible, there's not it's not that 2 players are exactly the same. So if you want a specific player for a specific reason, you kind of do need to go and get them when they come in. But with the amount of money that Livramento and Hall did cost, Guy is he's more expensive than both of them, but he is going to be another deja vu situation where Newcastle are building another defender that they don't necessarily need on the face of it, and there is so many holes, so many problems still to be fixed further up the pitch. Now, I do think Hall, from what I've seen in pre-season and from what Newcastle fans tell me, it's probably going to be his year. He's probably going to start the majority of games and be a very key player at left back. We've also seen his versatility at being able to play midfield as well. So I do think that Hall and Guy could be a left-sided defence that could be top level and could be a long-term solution for Newcastle on that one. But when you look at midfield, the best midfield is obviously the creme de la creme, Champions League level quality, I beg your pardon. Bruno Guimaraes, Joe Linton and Tonali coming back from obviously his big suspension. But the supporting cast, Isaac Hayden's back on the boots, Longstaff is still there, Miley of course impressed, Alfie Harrison, the Man City academy guy that's been featured in pre-season, let's see if he makes any squads, and Joe Willock of course as well. It's just the second string here is still very much mid-table Premier League, and I don't suspect Tonali's going to get banned again for another 10 months or whatever, but if Bruno was to be sold, if Joe Linton got an injury, again, this midfield is very fragile to a key piece getting taken out, and then the level, the quality diminishing greatly as a result. So I do hope Newcastle are still going to be shopping around in the midfield department, because they do need, for me, a guy of the level of Guy to come in and push that best midfield free and maybe give them a different alternative. Because I know that Eddie Howe and Newcastle have been very formidable with this 8-8 formation where all 3 midfielders are going box to box, line to line. They're covering every blade of grass. They're tackling every opposition player. They're passing to every one of their teammates. They're all being all things to all men. But if you don't have quality backup to sustain that, then the wheels can quickly fall off it. And we kind of seen that in spells last season, when the likes of Longstaff and, Miley was okay, but you know what I mean. You don't need me to recount history. And then when you look at the forward positions, Murphy is still here. Almiron is half being chased out because they could maybe sell him to Saudi Arabia. Isak is obviously getting the links all over the place. I think they definitely want Shota Wilson just with the age and the wages and whatever. And it looks like maybe Osula, a Danish youth international, might also be coming in from Sheffield United. And he's a guy that could definitely be like an understudy to an Isak, a third choice striker. I wouldn't quite go to second choice, having never seen him. And also his senior appearances are very minimal. It's like League One bottom end championship stuff we're talking here. So it's hard to imagine he's going to walk in and be the number 2 striker right off the bat. And, Gordon, sounded like that Liverpool move was imminent, was somewhat nigh. And then Newcastle pulled the plug on it because they could resolve their PSR stuff through different transfers or whatever, which is great. But one of the interesting kernels that came out of the Gordon move was that they were looking to bring in Joe Gomez as part of the deal as well, which does tell you that another top level, potentially Champions League level defender is something that Newcastle badly wanted to come in this window, which, again, just further perplexes me. Well, is Botman really that fucked? Do you not like Kelly as much anymore? Is Byrne not going to play? Is Lascelles getting totally bombed out? It just really does raise a big question for me. Is like, why losing Gordon, take less of a fee for Gordon to get Joe Gomez, or go and spend 65 million on Guehi? Why is that top of the agenda right now? Because if Alexander Isak leaves or is sold or is injured or suspended or whatever, Anthony Gordon you've not quite got the same problem with, because Barnes is a good understudy, he's a good deputy, and Barnes can do a wee bit of cover maybe on the right as well. Guran Kwal is back in the squad at the moment as well. Let's see what happens with him, probably loaned out. But the forward areas are so thin. If we do remove Wilson, Kwong, this is asking for trouble again, And Newcastle, last time I said this, they never really got into the trouble that I thought they would. But honestly, when I see the fee and like the sequence of events, like this is the transfer that Newcastle are doing now. It just feels like they're really playing with fire. Now, don't get me wrong, no European football this year. So if Newcastle can go weekend to weekend playing the best 11 they possibly can, I think we're going to get a bit of a throwback Thursday, a bit of a rewind situation, and we'll see an amazing Newcastle defensive performance like they did when they got into the Champions League this year. With the amount of quality options that they do have, like, it's hard to imagine that the Newcastle defence ever does look patchwork, in the sense of like there's guys making debuts, guys playing out of position. I know Kraft has played centre back in pre-season, but I don't think we're going to see that kind of thing as much anymore. There's really, with the lack of an absolute tragedy, that just doesn't really seem like it's possible now. So having like that rock solid defence, can Newcastle get into being the top 4, top 5 defences in the league now? Perhaps, especially if they weren't going to have Botman. It would be quite hard to imagine that Kelly or Byrne might be part of one of the best defences in the league. But I do think Guehi does open up that possibility now all of a sudden. And Newcastle have never really had any problems in scoring goals, because they do want to transition quickly. They do want to counter-attack into space. And with the synergy that we've seen from Gordon and Isak, probably one of the best partnerships, top 3, top 5 attacking partnerships in European football for me over last season, certainly anyway. And I think we can only see that continue to grow this year. But it's reliant on them too. It's very reliant on them too. It's maybe not as reliant on the midfield. I know Bruno can play those diagonal balls and really open up a defence. Tonali can maybe do a little bit of that as well. If they don't have Gordon, if they don't have Isak, then that is a big loss of firepower. And again, like I say, in midfield, like these guys, like if you were to bring Longstaff in for Tonali, if Miley had to play for Bruno, or Willock or Harrison had to play for Jolinton or whatever, I think I'll be making a video talking about why did they sign Marc Guehi for 65 million and not buy a couple of midfielders or something like that. It does really have me scratching my head. The only thing I can think is that there is a domino effect perhaps about to happen, where one of the stars, and I'm not going to name names, we'll just wiggle them on screen, but maybe one of these guys does move for big money. Maybe they can get Almiron off the books. Maybe Trippier can get off the books. These guys that are maybe on wages, and maybe it's like not great for PSR or whatever, but at least you can get them off the wage bill. Maybe that is what they need. But at the moment, I'm just really baffled at the extra next level effort that Newcastle are putting in to building the most well-rounded and robust defence that they possibly can. All the way so that they've actually signed 2 keepers in this window, which we mentioned in the last video, of course. But I do think Newcastle, like if this was the team that kicked off the first game of the season and Newcastle didn't lose anyone else and nothing crazy happened, Newcastle probably get top 6. And then it is just about how the results fall, how good do they do, if they can then get back top 5, top 4 to regain Champions League. Because midfield, it is going to be harder to get a better midfield than that across the Premier League this year. And like I say, Isak and Gordon are up there in the top 5 European attacking partnerships. So if the defensive record of 2 years ago can return and everything there on the pitch stays fit and healthy and can play every game, Newcastle should be pretty fine. But Yeah, I'm definitely sitting here now biting my nails for all the Geordie supporters that support me here on the channel by hitting that subscribe button, hit the like button, and getting into the comment section, supporting all the videos that we put out. Because I want you guys to do well. I want to see you succeed. I really do like the squad you are building here. And although I've not been the biggest Eddie Howe fan, he did begin to win me over, and now I'm back pulling my hair again. Like, what is he doing? Who looks at this team and thinks, let's go and spend 60 million on a centre back? You know. I'll be really excited to catch the comment section on this one, guys. On screen now is some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more content like this, not just on Newcastle, but on all the most interesting transfers, all the headline makers that we get across European and world football as we prepare for what could be the biggest season absolutely ever. Stay out of trouble, and I'll catch you on the next one.